watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, good morning to you and welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. I am Garrett Wymer and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday morning live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We do have a lot to get to on this day. You can see from our camera over downtown Orlando, some clouds in the sky there. That's because we are bracing for some storms, some heavy downpours as well at times today. It is a Fox 35 weather impact day because of the threat of some of those storms. And again, more of those tropical downpours, kind of like we saw last week as well. It has circled back around some of that moisture. And so we'll talk with Fox 35 storm team meteorologist Brooks Garner about that coming up in just a little bit. He'll have more on what we can expect. We are also going to hear from Governor Ron DeSantis here shortly. He's expected to be in Gainesville alongside the new state chief financial officer, Blaise Ngolia, just sworn in yesterday, already getting to work. We know last night because he put out a tweet on X saying that he has sent a letter to the mayor of Gainesville asking for more information as they hope to do some DOGE audits of local governments, and Gainesville being one of them, over concerns of excessive spending. So we will have more on that if we do expect the governor. He's expected to speak around 11:15. He did have another news conference earlier today in Fort Lauderdale, and so unclear if that will start exactly at 11:15, but we will certainly bring that to you live when it begins. Also, big news on the theme park front, breaking news this morning, as Disney announced a new animation-themed experience that's coming to Disney's Hollywood Studios. We're going to talk with a couple of our theme park experts about what you can expect, what to know about that. It will also be taking the place of a couple of things, so we will have all that information coming up in just a little bit. We are also following up today on Stephan Sterns, the man who is now sentenced to life in prison without parole after pleading no contest yesterday to the murder of 13-year-old Maddie Soto and pleading guilty to a number of charges related to sexual battery. So we will get into all of that today here on Fox 35 News Plus. Fox 35 storm team meteorologist Brooks Garner joins me now. And Brooks, we are watching for those storms and some potential for pretty heavy downpours again today.
It's true, Garrett. We've got a true tropical air mass in place, the same one we've been tracking now for more than a week. Do you remember the rain early last week? It went up to Louisiana, then did a big loop-the-loop, and it's back for a round two. That's why skies are so ominous today. That's why we've already seen flash flooding across the region. Daytona Beach right now, one of those spots where it's been very rainy. Not quite flash flooding there, but once you get up into the Ocala area, there's been a lot of flash flooding. Now, the weather this afternoon will feature scattered to numerous downpours setting up at random, but where it rains, it will pour. And we could easily get between 2 and 4 inches of rain in 1 hour. And that's the kind of rain that could cause ponding on the roads or even flash flooding. A lot of our area is saturated, where recent heavy rains have pushed the water table up enough where only an inch or so of water is just going to pond. It's not going to get into the soil and wash away. Now, this rain could continue through commute time. So from basically just after lunch, maybe an hour or so from now, through dinner time, we'll have a high chance for rain around the region. There's an 80% shot. This is a real deep tropical air mass, which means that any of these storms, even if they don't look very impressive on radar, could lay down a lot of rain. So waves of heavy rain today will be the biggest threat that could reduce visibility on the roadways. You might see a lot of the hazard lights on the interstate. Frequent lightning as well is going to be in the cards with these storms, and there could be a couple of damaging wind gusts. Otherwise, let's talk rain chances today and tomorrow. 80% chance of rain before rain chances start to fall as we head into the weekend. The weekend will be decidedly drier, although it's going to be really steamy. We're going to trade all this rain for heat. It's going to be like a steam room this weekend. But first things first, both today and tomorrow are Fox 35 weather impact days. Because that system I mentioned, it used to be a tropical wave called Invest 93L. It swung across the state early last week, made its way into Louisiana, and then did a U-turn and came back. Well, it's moving through again. And along that disturbance, even though the original surface low long ago dissipated, a new surface low is expected to develop in the Northeast Gulf before this day is out and focus a lot of that rain as it moves westward toward Louisiana, bringing with it the potential for more flooding across the north central Gulf Coast in already hard-hit areas from last week. There's a front just to the north also that's going to help to wring out a lot of that moisture. Now, Compounding the entire thing, we've got an upper level system in the Bahamas that's going to be heading through. So this is your tropical update. That low pressure in the northern Gulf has a chance to become a tropical depression. It's a very slight chance. The National Hurricane Center not yet tracking it. But if a surface low forms over that very warm Gulf water with temperatures off of Louisiana close to 90 degrees, there would be a window of opportunity for something to form. Either way, all that is going to do in this specific case is bring all the rain to one central point, making it heavier where it falls, but less widespread. So it's going to kind of pull it all together as it moves ashore once we get into the end of this work week in either Louisiana or East Texas. Meanwhile, back here in Florida, dry air in the mid-levels will surge in from the southeast, and that's going to end our likely rain chances, giving us a welcome break from the constant storms and a lot more sunshine. But at the cost of heat and humidity, there is a heat advisory that is going to be likely issued for the entire weekend with feels like temperatures over 108 degrees. Then that same area of moisture, this is where it gets crazy, comes back for more, and we may have more tropical rain heading our way for the end of July. Elsewhere in the tropics, things right now are quiet. We did have that tropical wave, which is currently near St. Lucia, pushing through over the last couple of days with a 20% chance of development, but the National Hurricane Center at this point says there's no chance. It has encountered hostile wind shear as expected, and essentially its threat for development has dissipated. Elsewhere in the tropics, looking toward Africa, a couple of tropical waves coming off of the continent, but there's a lot of dry air thanks to Saharan dust. No development expected over the next 7 days. There is, however, a tropical upper tropospheric trough. It's called a TUTT low, T-U-T-T. That's the acronym for tropical upper tropospheric trough. Say that 10 times fast. That's the tongue twister of weather. That's going to be heading into South Florida tomorrow. And because it's an upper level system, there's no threat for development, but it will help to enhance the tropical downpours over Florida for the day tomorrow. All right, that's a look at your tropical update. As far as the forecast goes for the rest of the outlook, as that system moves in, you can see that swirl. That's really going to enhance our lift and instability for the day tomorrow. And that's why tomorrow there's also an 80% chance for rain, even though the core of that system is going to move west of our area today. So here we go. As we head into the weekend, look what happens to those temperatures. We go from highs around 90 to highs in the mid 90s, and that'll be just enough to put us into that heat advisory category. Typically in the summertime here, we see either no heat advisories or maybe in a hot summer, 1 or 2. Already this summer we've had 3, and there's no reason this weekend we shouldn't have at least a 5 so far for this year. So Garrett, already it's been a much hotter than normal summer.
Yeah, certainly felt like it.
Yeah, it has. If you're a runner, if you do anything outside, you can attest. The humidity is at a certain point this year where you're out there for 30 seconds and you're already soaked. It may not be sweat, maybe it's condensation, like holding an icy glass of water outside of the humidity, but either way, you're sweaty as a result.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Fox 35 Storm Team Meteorologist Brooks Garner, we appreciate you joining us.
You got it. My pleasure as always.
And as we go to break here on Fox 35 News Plus, give you a live look at the sky here in Lake Mary, right above the Fox 35 studios. You can see those clouds starting to gather. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back after this.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday morning live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We are continuing to follow up today on Stephan Sterns, who is sentenced to life in prison without parole after pleading yesterday no contest to murder, pleading guilty to a number of charges in the sexual battery case. Today was when jury selection was slated to begin for that trial. It was an emotional day yesterday in the courtroom, as we heard from a number of family members of Maddie Soto, as we also heard from Stephan Sterns himself. I'm going to bring in Lauren Cadilac, who is an attorney who we've talked with about this case before. Lauren joining us live via Zoom. Lauren, we appreciate you joining us. I first just want to get your reaction to what we saw and what we heard yesterday inside the courtroom.
Well, thank you for having me. I watched yesterday, and I think what we saw was relatively typical. There was absolutely no surprise out of me that he took a plea. That was the attempt to save his own life. He knew that if he went to trial, he would receive the death penalty, particularly in Florida. And so I believe he took this plea to save his life. While I understand that that is our justice system, it does feel personally a bit like a cop-out. I thought the family's statements were really lovely. Even when the attorneys were reading statements on other people's behalf, they were still very touching. I particularly thought the friend of Maddie who came up, I thought her words were beautiful. I enjoyed her righteous indignance. But I really did kind of throw up in my mouth when Stephan Sterns stood up to say how sorry, how he misses Maddie every day. And all I can think is, like, why didn't you think of that on her 13th birthday? Right? Like, so that's kind of where I lost any empathy. Of course, I feel for the family. I have a daughter that's Maddie's age, so this really hits home. What he had to say, it reminded me a bit, Garrett. We met on the Sarah Boone case, and if you remember, she had similar things. Very woe is me. I thought when he says, "I miss her every day," I wanted to punch him. Like, you miss her every day? Really? Really? You know how that could have been avoided? Just that to me was really, it was gross. He should have just kept his mouth shut if he was going to say those kind of things.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder at that point, if you're the defense attorney there, what are you thinking as he's saying that?
Well, I actually was curious about the same thing. So I was really trying to read his attorneys from the very side profile shot we had. We couldn't really see their faces. I think for them, it's like one of these moments, but he has the right to speak and he wants to, and you've already got the plea deal signed. So you might as well let him take the floor, as tacky as his words might be.
We've seen a lot of people asking questions online about the absence of Jenn Soto from the courtroom, and I'm curious just kind of what you make of that. And I've also seen some people say, well, it may have been more of a distraction to have her there. I'm just curious if you make anything of her not being there for this for such a large part of this process.
Well, one thing that I find a bit irksome about human nature is that when someone experiences trauma or crisis, we immediately want to weigh in and say, oh, well, they should be doing this, or I would be doing that. And you yourself have never been in that situation. In the law, we have, and we call it the ostrich head, where it's someone is burying their head underground, so that they don't actually have to face the painful reality. as someone who experienced trauma in her childhood, I certainly can understand the desire to, avoid those things for your own self-protection. If I were in Jen's shoes, the guilt would overwhelm me. I don't think I would be able to function because that happened in Jen's bed. It happened under Jen's care. And whether, again, we don't know that she knew about it. But as a mother, if I found out something like that was happening right under my nose, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. I wouldn't even be able to get up out of bed to go to the trial. So I don't really read anything into it except as a mother. And I don't think it necessarily says anything. I did yesterday, however, comment, are they going to press charges against her? It seems, but see, again, this is the human nature thing that's irksome. We don't know. We don't live in that home. We don't, there are women who have been married to serial killers and they had no idea, right? So for us to say, well, she should have known, or I don't think we can even go there. I think it is destructive to go there, and it doesn't help anyone. It certainly doesn't help the victim. I know Maddie wouldn't want us to blame her mother, so.
There have been, you mentioned the possibility of charges. We've never gotten any indication that there would be, anything filed. She's not, police have never made any sort of statement about, being a person of interest, being involved, having any knowledge of this, or certainly any wrongdoing at this point. But there has been a lot of speculation, a lot of questions about whether she would. If she were to face charges, do you think that's something that would have already happened by now, or do you think that in cases like this, that door could potentially still be open?
Well, there are certain times where the government strategy would be to prosecute one, see how that goes, and then decide if they'll prosecute the other. However, in this case, it is my understanding that Maddie's mom suffered many mental illness issues and was heavily medicated for those. I would assume, especially in your area, that the police have done a thorough investigation. I say especially in your area because I know how strongly your community comes against child crimes, which I think is beautiful. And so because of that fervor against child crimes, I do believe that if she had been involved, they would have charged her by now. Yes.
Right, Lauren Cadillac, an attorney, the founder of Cadillac Law out of Dallas. We always appreciate your perspective and your analysis, and thank you so much for joining us today here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this busy Tuesday morning here live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We got some breaking news with the theme parks earlier today, and this comes at an exciting weekend at Disney anyway, with the premiere of the nighttime parade over the weekend, with Test Track opening today, so a lot going on. So that means we want to check in with Drew Smith, Drew the Disney Dude, and Tharin White, the lead publisher of EYNTK.info. And we appreciate y'all joining us this morning here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Always happy to join.
Let's start with this new announcement this morning for what is coming to Hollywood Studios. Tharin, you're decked out there with your Hollywood Studios gear, so kind of give us the breakdown of what we know about this this new experience.
Yeah, the magic of Disney animation is going to be coming to Disney's Hollywood Studios. It's going to be replacing the Animation Courtyard, the Disney Junior Play Show, as well as Star Wars Launch Bay. So the reason I'm wearing this jacket, I worked at Star Wars Launch Bay for over 3 years of my life. I love that area. I love the Star Wars characters. That being said, I still think that this is a fantastic addition and a great reimagining of the space. I think it's the right time. I think people have asked for this, and all the stuff that they talked about that's coming here, I think they're all really, really good changes for the park. We're seeing more shade, more playground areas for kids, a look at Disney animation, a kind of a throwback to how the park was when it first opened. Overall, I think this is a win for the park, and I'm happy to see that not only is it going to close this year pretty soon, but it's opening up in 2026, so we don't have a long time to wait for this either.
Yeah, Drew, what do you make of this, and what do you think this adds to the park?
Yeah, this is a fantastic, fantastic choice in my opinion. And I think going back to Disney's classic storytelling, I mean, Disney's Hollywood Studios was born on talking about how these movies were made. Some of Disney's beloved classics like Lilo and Stitch and Mulan were literally created in the building right behind Star Wars Launch Bay. So bringing that DNA back into Hollywood Studios, kind of giving this park an identity again, which people have loved for over 35 years, I think that this is the best case scenario. And even if this isn't the long-term thing that they're going to do with this area, maybe 10, 15 years from now, for the meantime, it's perfect. And what they're talking about in the official article with a production gallery where portraits are going to come to life, just like in Once Upon a Studio, the short film we saw. And there's going to be a new short film here. There's going to be an indoor playground. There's going to be a new Disney Junior show. Like, this is perfect. This is indoor stuff for families to get out of the sun. And it's leaning into Disney's history. I don't think they could have done any better than this.
Tharin, you mentioned some of the timeline for this. What can we expect when it comes to this transformation of this area?
Yeah, so the very last day that you can go and experience this area is going to be September 24th. That's on a Wednesday. It's coming up very, very fast. I think that's one thing we should note about Disney really over the past year is we can't lie. In 2020, 2021, and 2022, Disney kept getting made fun of for how long it would take to open some of their projects. It would be years and years and we wouldn't hear updates. Last year at the D23 Expo, Disney talked about how they are going to put shovels in the ground and they are getting to work. And we have seen that non-stop. On every project they've talked about, it has been lightning fast. So they didn't say when this new area is going to open up in 2026. But I mean, even if it took just a year to completely reimagine that space within 1 year is something that I think fans would really like. And I'm glad to see that the Little Mermaid show is still going to be there. It would be upsetting if they just opened her show and then had to redo it all over again. So I'm happy to see that new show is still going to be there. Still something you can enjoy, but you only have until September 24th to be able to check out this area as we have it right now.
The Disney Starlight nighttime parade premiered over the weekend at Magic Kingdom. Drew, I know you've seen the show a number of times already. Just kind of give us your initial thoughts, your initial review of what you saw.
Yeah, I absolutely adore this parade. I saw it on the 18th, 19th, and 20th, the previews and then the official performance. And I just think the teams at Disney Live Entertainment did such a phenomenal job balancing nostalgia with some previous parades like we've seen with the Main Street Electrical Parade and Spectrum Magic, while also having a new parade that stands on its own. Over 30 Disney and Pixar characters, all these gorgeous floats. I think the only thing that I would improve with this parade is the ground units, the performers around the floats. In my opinion, they are very weak and leave a lot to be desired. So I would upgrade those units, add some more performers, The thing is, the floats themselves are perfect. Like, I have no notes with the floats themselves. So I just want to see some updates, hopefully within the next year or two. But yeah, I absolutely love this parade, and I'm honestly considering going over there tonight to see it again. I love it that much.
It's been a big draw, and Tharin, I want to get your thoughts on this too, as far as what what the appetite. There's clearly a big appetite for something like this.
Yeah, the last time that we had a long on-standing like nighttime parade at Magic Kingdom was 2016. We've had the Halloween parades and we've had the Christmas parades, but for a dedicated one that anyone with a single standard ticket could go and see, it's been nearly a decade. Fans love this. I went on their soft opening night and the crowds were all there. I think the entire park was standing around waiting to see that parade. So I think that that's great. And I think that there's a secret advantage to this nighttime parade as well. It's going to be happening usually 2 times a night, once before the fireworks and once after. This basically forces the park to stay open later. There's been a lot of talk about how we wish the parks were open for longer and how we can enjoy them in those nighttime hours. Disney is doing all of that with this. We're seeing these gorgeous new floats, and Drew is correct. These things are gorgeous. They're bright, they're vibrant. I love all the energy they have with them. So to see that, plus you get to be in the Magic Kingdom for longer because they have to keep the park open for this parade to have multiple routes a day. I think that is a major benefit for the park and something that we all really get to enjoy.
Test Track 3.0 officially opens today. We know there was a soft opening over the weekend. And a lot of excitement for this one. This has been a long time coming as well. And Drew, let me just first kind of get your thoughts on Test Track opening today. I know this is something we've been talking about for a while.
Yeah, it's funny. Right at 10 a.m., whenever I posted that Test Track had opened, I refreshed to Disney Parks blog, and that's when they announced the animation news. So much happening today, like you mentioned. But in my opinion, this is the best iteration of Test Track. Kind of like what I said with Starlight, I think that the teams working on this project did a really good job balancing what people love about EPCOT and previous iterations of Test Track, while also making something new. It has those futuristic aspects where the car is kind of using its sensors and onboard cameras and talking about a futuristic city, while also leaning into Epcot's history. There's so many Easter eggs, and at the end of the day, Test Track's just a really, really fun attraction. So the fact that this is back now and people can go on it, there's no more previews, they can just walk in, standby queue, no virtual queue. I love it, and I think it's fantastic to just have it on standby. That's the thing I'm most excited about.
Tharin, do you think this is going to be something that is, we're going to see long waits for?
Yeah, I would expect this is going to have longer waits, but the ride itself is pretty efficient. The only time it really has issues is when it's raining because it does go outside. So because of that, there's not much they can do when they have inclement weather. But the ride itself, I mean, gets people through pretty quickly. And because the track itself has not changed at all, that means that they're used to how this ride works. The maintenance teams can keep it going usually at a pretty regular rate. So we should expect to see those wait times. They're definitely going to skyrocket here for the first couple months, especially being in summer. But I think that ride can regulate itself pretty quick because they've been running this ride for many, many years. It's just now we have a really fun new storyline we get to enjoy.
Yeah, what do you think makes this one unique and makes this one, I want both of you to answer this. Tharin, we'll start with you. What do you think makes this one so much fun? Drew, I know you called it the best iteration of it.
So personally, I still love the original version of Test Track. I just love the craziness and the grunginess. That being said, I do still really love this version. I think this does a great job of using the age-old term that Disney loves. It's called edutainment. It's exciting, you're learning about stuff, but at the same time, we're still going to go on this fun ride, right? We're going to have fun. We're going to go 60 miles an hour. We're going to go through these old school like houses like you see here on screen. I love that. To me, that screams EPCOT. EPCOT has had these like weird bit of tech combined with us going through a dark ride at the same time. And to me, it feels very, very EPCOT. There is a lot of Easter eggs to older attractions and parts of EPCOT. So I think that that's just really nice. It just feels like a refreshed ride that doesn't lean too heavy on tech, doesn't lean too heavy on nostalgia. It's a nice balance. And again, you go really fast. So there's the thrill aspect.
Yeah, I fully agree with Aaron. I just think that the fact that I think the biggest thing I come back to is the quality upgrade from the previous iteration we saw with Test Track 2.0. There was lots of very flat, uninspired set pieces, and to me, the main reason I went on it was for the track layout and the thrills. Now this feels like a healthy balance of a really good quality dark ride almost at times, where everything has been upgraded to make it feel like almost a brand new attraction. And like we mentioned multiple times, just the fact that you get to go 65 miles per hour at the end, the general family visiting Walt Disney World, they're going to love it just for the thrills. But for us as the diehard Disney fans, I think it's a perfect balance of diehard Disney fan loving this and the general family just walking into Epcot, hearing the cars whiz by, say, hey, what's that? Let's go ride this. They're going to have a blast too. So I think it's a win for everyone. And honestly, everything I've been seeing about Test Track's feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. So it's really nice to see it back at the park and for the next decade plus.
Well, Drew Smith, aka Drew the Disney Dude, and Tharin White from EYNTK.info. We appreciate y'all joining us and breaking down all this, lots of theme park news on this Tuesday. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus, and give you a live look right now inside the FDOT State Materials Office in Gainesville. This is where we expect Governor Ron DeSantis any minute now to come in and speak, hold a news conference alongside the state CFO, Blaise Ngolia, who is a former state senator who was just sworn in as CFO yesterday. And as I mentioned earlier, he has already been fairly busy, and I want to pull up a tweet and kind of show you why. I did mention this earlier, but I want to be able to kind of show you a little bit more about it. So give me 1 second here. This was what he tweeted last night, 8:20, talking about promising taxpayers to audit local governments and protect their tax dollars. And so I want to bring up this letter that he tweeted and that he had sent to the governor, or excuse me, the mayor of Gainesville. And he talks about an increase in property taxes, saying at the same time that Gainesville's annual budget is expanded by nearly $90 million per year. That's over $600 per resident. Then talking about, as you kind of scroll through there, talking about the DOGE audits and their plan, some of what they are looking for. You see, in a follow-up to a previous letter that they sent asking for information, the DOGE team has identified additional information needed for our review. So they are asking for several things. You see that letter signed, Blaise Ngolia, the chief financial officer. They sent a similar letter to Fort Lauderdale, and we did hear from the governor and the CFO in Broward County earlier today. Meanwhile, here is the governor walking into the news conference in Gainesville, and let's go ahead and listen in.
Well, great to see everybody. Great to be back. And there's got, I think they have a couple games to start that may be on the easy side, but it gets pretty doggone tough after that. A very, very difficult schedule. I know we're gonna have Arch Manning coming to Gainesville with Texas, which will be good. And I know there'll be a lot of other good games. So I think the way the season ended last year was positive. I think that they've got an opportunity to do well. So we'll see what happens. That's the one. Florida, we're like #1, and I just got ranked #1 for religious liberty. We're #1 in economy 3 years in a row by CNBC. We've been #1 in higher education for many years, academic. We've been #1 in all these different things. But we're not #1 in college football anymore. And so, man, it would be great to be able to get back there. So I'm rooting for them. I want to see. And, I've got 3 young kids who have grown up in Tallahassee, and they've migrated to the Knolls. And so I try to tell them, I'm like, listen, I'm governor of all the people. So I was like, because I was at the championship game for the basketball team. And I'm like, you got to root. I was like, you can't, because we thought it was going to be Duke versus Florida in the championship. I was like, son, Madison, Mason, you cannot root for Duke against the Florida team. I don't care how much you like the Florida State stuff. But I will tell you, as parents, we've not steered them. In fact, last year, start of the season, the Miami game in Gainesville, my girls were wearing, Florida cheerleading attire. My son was wearing a Tebow jersey. They go to the swamp. We're like, maybe they'll like it. And, they just grew up in Tallahassee. So it is what it is with that. But we've been equal opportunity where, but we are looking forward to it. I think it's going to be interesting. We've got a lot of great opportunities. We're also, excited to be able to be here with our new chief financial officer for the state of Florida, Blaise Ngolia. Well, there he is right there. So Blaise is, he was a state senator over north of Tampa Bay and has been a huge warrior on all the issues that the voters that elected us have wanted to tackle. Now as the chief financial officer, he's going to be tackling, a number of issues, helping us with property tax relief, but also using the authority of the CFO's office to, conduct audits and oversight of the spending of local governments in both the county and state level. And it's really important. And so the state of Florida at the beginning of the year, partially to build off what was being done with President Trump and Elon Musk with the DOGE, we said we want to be doing that in Florida. And now look, we went into it. Some people say you guys have been doing this for many years, and it's true. I mean, I think if you look at what we've done, over the last 6+ years, if you take all the debt that Florida's accumulated over its 180-year history, just since I've been governor, we're close to retiring almost 50% of that in just this period of time, and we're going to do more over the next year or two, which is great. If you look at the number of state government workers per capita in Florida, we're the lowest in the entire country. If you look at the amount of money the state of Florida spends per capita, we're the second lowest in the country. If you compare Florida to the state that's closest to us in population, New York, we've got like 3 million, maybe even 4 million more people, more residents than New York State does, and yet their budget is twice as large as Florida's state budget. New York City's budget is more than the state of Florida. They have 8 million people. And if this guy gets elected mayor up there and he starts running the grocery stores, they're going to end up in a bigger hole than they are now. And you can see that. How he could get elected, actually, he probably could get elected in Gainesville, but not not many other parts of Florida could he possibly get elected. But if he does get elected there, I mean, you are going to see people starting to flee New York. I mean, it's been happening. De Blasio, I was governor. I became governor in the middle of de Blasio, and especially how they handled COVID and the BLM riots. People had enough, but everyone's got their threshold, and I think this guy's threshold, people are going to reach their threshold. And one of the things we're going to be doing, in Florida, we've done law enforcement recruitment bonuses. So when we bring in people or new recruits from within the state, they get a $5,000 signing bonus. Part of it, we want to promote law enforcement as a noble profession, but we also understood you've got a lot of these cops are treated poorly in some of these jurisdictions. So you got a guy that could get elected mayor that thinks the NYPD should be abolished. I don't know. I would not want to put on the uniform and risk my life in that circumstance with a mayor that clearly doesn't have your back. So I think you're going to see a lot of law enforcement want to relocate out of there. And I guarantee you, they'll go different places, but I guarantee you the #1 landing spot will be the state of Florida, because we're a law and order state. That's just the way it works. So the budget, I mean, way different. Everything we've been doing is great, but at the same time, it's like, and the budget I just signed for this fiscal year, even though we increased teacher salaries, even though we increased infrastructure, even though we did historic investments in Everglades and natural resources, all these things, it still spends less year over year than the previous year's budget. And that previous year's budget spent less year over year than the year before that. How many other states are reducing spending over a 3-year period like that? I don't think any of them are, but certainly not very many. So we've really led the way. We're proud of that, but you can always do better. So what we did, and our agencies are always reviewing these contracts as a matter of course. This isn't anything new for us, but they're using artificial intelligence and all these other things. So we're employing those tools. We have a DOGE entity now in the state government. I did an executive order. Part of we also needed to do scrutiny is the universities, because universities get a lot of money. And on the one hand, I know we've done a decent job because tuition is the same today as it was when I became governor. So in-state tuition, especially if you're good enough to get into UF now, you probably are going to get bright futures anyways. That's 100%, 75% tuition depending. So we've done a good job of holding the line on tuition, but the legislature appropriates money, and we want to make sure that's it. So those DOGE efforts have been going on now for several months. But we also understood state and local government, because people are coming to me wanting property tax relief, and I'm supportive of that. I think we need to do it, but that property tax revenue is local revenue. It's imposed by local governments, and it's used for local things. We're not getting property tax revenue at the state of Florida. I'll talk about, like, we maxed out our rainy day fund. So from the time I became governor till now, we've more than tripled the state's rainy day fund. You never know what's going to happen. You have a recession, all this other stuff. Florida's not going to be immune to that if that happens nationwide. And so and some people are like, well, why do you put money in the rainy day, reduce property tax? That's not property tax revenue. The property tax revenue is going for local. So you have places where you've seen major bloat in the budgets. So we were just down in Broward County to announce an audit of the county government there, because they've had almost no population increase in the last 4 or 5 years, but they've had increase in property tax, 45% more they're taking in with this revenue. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, well, it's not because of population growth. And so where is that money going? Where's the spending? So if you want to do property tax relief, part of what you have to do is identify the way that the areas that impose those taxes to begin with, those areas of government, how are they spending the money? So we wanted to lean in on applying these DOGE efforts to local governments. Now, I have some authority under the Constitution to request information. The CFO, and Blaze is now using this, has authority. Any entity that's receiving state funding can do audits. But we wanted to make sure that we had the ability to come in and actually do the real thorough inspections like they've done at the federal level. And so the legislature did include this year, at our request, authority to do the DOGE-ing of local governments. And that's municipalities, counties, even entities within there. Like we were down there talking about, like, the Broward Sheriff's Department. Yeah, that's grist for the mill. So that has happened. And so I'm pleased to announce that today. And so, but before we even got that, we sent information to a lot of to all the counties and the cities saying, hey, comply with what we're trying to do with DOGE. And many of them didn't. Some did. Many of them didn't. And so we're now utilizing this new authority to roll out these DOGE efforts vis-a-vis city and county governments across the state of Florida. So this morning we announced Broward County would be the first county that would do, and this will be, starting at the end of July, you'll have the DOGE teams will show up to these areas, review data systems, review the physical premises, review the personnel records of county and cities, specifically ones that have kind of come under the microscope. So this is much different than me just sending a letter saying, hey, you know, what did you spend that on? These are going to be real auditors that are going to be on the ground doing this. And again, we have the authority now to be able to access this information. And we are going to start with some of the jurisdictions. And so part of the reason we're here today, we were in Broward this morning to announce we are going to include in the first round of DOGE audits a review, a thorough review of the practices of the city of Gainesville here in Osceola County. Over the last 5 years, taxpayers in Gainesville have watched as the city government has increased burdens on property owners, over $30 million in additional ad valorem tax collections, which represents an increase of almost 86% since 2020. This has been part of increased spending that has seen Gainesville's operating budget expand by over $90 million a year. So this is, if you just divide by the residents, much less property owners, $600 per resident in additional taxes that have been applied. And of course, what has the city done with the money? They have DEI, they have Green New Deal, they have things that, quite frankly, a lot of taxpayers don't want to pay more property taxes to be able to fund. And so the goal of this review is to identify these practices, seek justification for why you've seen the growth in the taxes. I know they just raised the tax the other day. I saw a report on that, and I'm just thinking to myself, we should be, you know, it's one thing for the state of Florida to do what we've done, and we're proud of that, but if you're a Floridian, whether it's city or county government, taxpayers should be put first. Taxpayers should be respected, and that's what we're trying to do here. So we will work with our CFO, Blaise Angolia, to conduct these visits. Blaise has already assured me that, that his team at the CFO's office is standing by and ready to work. And here's the thing. This is not optional cooperation. This has been passed by the Florida legislature, signed into law by me as governor. There's also constitutional authority that helps inform this, and the CFO also has authority to be able to inform this. And so we believe that taxpayers have wanted to see this done. This will then roll into our effort to be able to do the property tax relief on the ballot in 2026. And I think the reason is, you know, people who oppose property tax relief will say, well, you know, we need schools and fire and police. Of course we do. But what about all this other spending that's not there? What about some of the, you know, we were just down in Broward, and their county administrator makes almost $500,000 a year. Now, look, I mean, like, you know, so is that what you want as a taxpayer? So these things need scrutiny, and because I really believe you can do the things at the local level we all agree on, education, first responders, all that, and still be able to provide meaningful property tax relief, but not if the spending is not kept in check on these other items. So you're going to see that. I think it's going to be really, really instructive. I want to thank the folks that helped work with us to get this into law. Now, there are ramifications for noncompliance, and there's a variety of tools that we'll have at our disposal. And, you know, if we need to do that, we will do that. But I'm excited. We're going to be rolling out more jurisdictions over the next 2 weeks. So expect to see other cities and other counties from various parts of the state of Florida. I mean, we're down in Broward, like you just doing, you know, Broward, you know, Southeast Florida. I mean, they acted like Southeast Florida, you know, is like, you know, like this Democrat area. Like, I won Miami-Dade and Palm Beach County, by the way. So it's not. Now, Broward is a bird of a different feather, but that's okay. It is what it is. So it's not. We're really looking at where have we, you know, received a lot of interest in examining who has not been fully compliant with the requests that have been made. But you will see counties in variety parts of the state. Like, you'll see different political compositions. It's going to be, I think, an interesting but meaningful diversity across the state from both the county and municipal level. And it could also be other entities that are affiliated with a specific county. You know, we mentioned Broward Sheriff's Department. That would be something that can obviously be looked at. So I'm excited to unleash our new Chief Financial Officer, Blaise Ngolia, on this. You know, the thing about it is, so we had this vacancy because our past CFO got elected to Congress in the 1st District of Florida. And so, you know, created this vacancy, and people are like, what about this? What about this guy? What about that? And the thing about it for me is, you know, I want somebody in there that's going to fight for the people of the state, for taxpayers, for consumers. And I think that's what everybody wants for that. So how do you know someone's going to do that? For me, the way to know is to see do they have a record of actually doing that in the offices they've already held. Because if they've been in office and just been, you know, very passive and meek and not willing to get out there and run towards the fire, they're not all of a sudden going to grow a spine of steel in a new office and start really leading. That's just not the way it works. And so we've had different, on issue after issue, Blaise has fought for you and has delivered for you. Election integrity, all the stuff we've done in Florida to ban ballot harvesting, clean up the voter rolls, election crimes unit to prosecute illegal voting. Leading the nation and all that, he wrote every one of those bills and pushed them through the legislature. If you look at Second Amendment rights, he refused to buckle when they were restricting Second Amendment rights back before I became governor. He's always stood for Second Amendment. You look at illegal immigration, everything we've done, banning sanctuary cities, doing the things to hold the localities accountable, no IDs, all the stuff we've done to lead the nation there. Blaise was the one that was really pushing that. And then we had a skirmish with you know, the Speaker of the House and some of the legislators earlier this year, about I wanted us doing immigration to help the Trump administration increase deportations. They rejected initially what I said, and they passed a bill that would have made Florida de facto sanctuary state. Blaise stood with you and stood against the Speaker of the House and other leaders to do the right thing. So, and then on fiscal, you know, he's been a fiscal hawk for, even when he was just a businessman, not even elected. He was focusing on waste in local government in Hernando County. So that record is very, very strong. And then even, you know, we just had the news last week about the redistricting maps that we did for Congress in 22 were upheld by the Florida Supreme Court. And people may not remember, you know, we have big Republican majorities, but they passed a map that was a bad map. And I said, I'm going to veto it if you pass it, and they passed it. So I vetoed it. And then we ended up calling a special session, and then we have a much better map that was just approved as fully constitutional and compliant with the law. Blaise was the whole time standing for you and standing for what was right on that. So when I see that you have a record of actually doing what you said you're going to do, that is the most meaningful indicator to me. And I'm sorry, like, I watched these guys campaign not only here but around the country. They all say the same things when they want your vote, especially in a Republican primary. But then once it comes time to get into office, the number of them who actually deliver on what they say is honestly in Republican few and far between, unfortunately. And so when you have somebody that's not only talk the talk but walk the walk and delivered results, that's the best indicator that you're going to see meaningful leadership and action in this new office. And so I think you're going to find in short order that he's a guy that's going to fight for you. He's a guy that really, really puts the taxpayers of this state and the consumers of this state first. And that's exactly what we need as a CFO. So the floor is yours, my man.
Thank you, Governor. Governor, I want to thank you for leading on this issue, and as always, a lot of issues. This governor has taken a lot of issues over the years. Some instances where other governors, other states would shy away from the fight, he was a leader on this. You know, sometimes turning other states into doing what Florida has done because of Ron DeSantis' leadership. Right now, he's leading on property tax reform, trying to eliminate property taxes on homesteaded properties, and auditing and DOGE-ing local governments, and that's why we're here today. But before we start, I just want to say it is great being in Gainesville, the home of the Florida Gators. So I gotta say this because the governor and I talk sports all the time. the gov is like, hey, now that you're a statewide elected official, you have to sort of be, even on all sides. Look, I'm a Tampa Bay Lightning fan. I was actually rooting for the Florida Panthers. I said, I may be CFO. I have to get used to rooting for the other side. Look, I grew up in New York City. Don't hold that against me. I escaped New York City to come here because of low taxes. But I root for the Tampa Bay Rays. I root for the Florida Marlins. Somebody said, hey, does that mean you're going to root for FSU? And I'm like, no, I am not. So then they said, well, what about the Miami Hurricanes? I'm like, do you want to start a fight? But I will tell you that I started off as an anti-wasteful spending activist when I was back in the mid-2000s. If we remember, back then we saw the increase in property taxes because we saw an increase in values and local governments expanded government. We're seeing the same thing that's happening right now. Local government revenue coming in are expanding anywhere between like 60 to 120%. They're taking the extra tax revenue, they're spending it recklessly.
That's new CFO Blaise Ngolia, who is speaking right now in Gainesville. This news conference is continuing. We are going to take a quick break here on Fox Local, but we will come back in about 2 minutes, and you will be able to watch as this news conference continues. Again, Blaise Ngolia and Governor DeSantis talking about auditing local government, announcing one earlier in Broward County, now in Gainesville. Again, we're going to step aside, take a quick 2-minute break, but we'll come back with more coverage of this news conference live in Gainesville after this.
Up here after this and explain, because we both believe, and the governor said this eloquently before, is that do you really own your home? Even if you have it free and clear, you're renting it from the government. So, Governor, the team at DOGE Florida, I look forward to working with you side by side to make sure that we're holding people accountable. I will tell you this, a new era of accountability is upon us in Florida. Thank you, Governor.
Yeah, so I think this will be very meaningful. I know there's a lot of taxpayers who wanted to see this in different parts of the state, and it will stretch in different parts of the state. But I also just wanted to commend, we did have a lot of local governments who voluntarily fully complied and were welcoming this. Not all of them, maybe not most of them, but there were some that have done. There was others, there was more of a division, but you did have some individual commissioners that wanted to work with our team, and so they've been doing that. But the reality is the law is the law now, so we are going to exercise the authority to make sure people are able to get answers. And I'm going to take questions in a minute, but I do, because Blaze was mentioning a little bit about the college sports, and I didn't really, I don't know if I've been back to Gainesville since the basketball championship, but of all the things I've done and been in person, we hosted the Super Bowl in Tampa in 2021, and I'm a Bucks fan like Blaze, and so watching them win the Super Bowl, it's kind of a big deal to be there and everything. But this was unique because it didn't look like they were going to win, and it was like not the greatest game. And then all of a sudden, it was like the last 2 minutes, things just started moving. Next thing you know, the buzzer goes off, and they're national champions. And so it was really neat to be able to see that. And I always tell people that the model for athletic program is what it was in Florida when you had the basketball team repeating, you had the Tebow game. I mean, you will never be able to find a place that can match that. And I even went to war with Grok about, because Florida is the only school that's won 3 basketball and 3 football. And before I put that out, I wanted to confirm that on Grok. And so Grok was just saying things that just weren't accurate. He's like, well, there's this many football, this has maybe, and they didn't even mention Florida. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I was like, they definitely have 3 in each. I was like, so what about football? They're like, well, and I'm like, well, didn't they win it? They won 1 under Spurrier, 2 under. Oh, yeah, they did win. You're right. And then I'm like, well, basketball, they just won it, 2 days ago. I was like, well, okay, yeah. So it just shows you this artificial intelligence. We're going to be rolling out, kind of an overall approach from the state of Florida in the coming months, because I think this AI is going to be a really big deal for our society. I think there's a lot of perils in AI. First of all, it's just like, are we functioning human beings who think for ourselves, or are we just going to rely on computers to do all of our thinking for you? It's one thing to have technology to enhance the human experience. It's one thing to try to have technology displace that. But then you also have the fact that relying on AI, the reality is it is flawed. I mean, I don't care how good. There are certain things that they're just not doing. And I see that in all the different AI products. And so, but bottom line is, this is something I think is going to be really important for our society, our state, our country in the ensuing years. And the change is very rapid, that you can see big changes in society perhaps very quickly. I don't think that we want our society to just be turned over to tech overlords. I think that we have, they were thinking about in Washington taking away the state's ability to have any type of laws regarding AI. And I'm just like, listen, I'm not saying I have something right now, but there may be things that we have to do to protect people from some of the negative effects of this technology. So, it's not something you can just put your head in the sand on, but it's also not something that you can just totally submit to and just let it run roughshod. I think there's some real perils there, and we're going to be working hard. But the fact that Grok did not know that that the Gators had won 3 in each. I mean, to me, it's like, that's, if you have all this access to all this data, that would be a very easy thing to be able to do. So there's a lot of flaws in this, and I know it's gotten a lot better, but we cannot just relinquish our human reason and our willingness to think for ourselves in favor of some of these machines. Okay, do we have any questions? Well, I did an executive order at the beginning of the year to do state agencies. So we do that as a matter of course anyways. So these contracts, Elon's finding all these contracts federally he was doing. We do that as a matter of course. Well, we've done state that's different now because we saw how they were using artificial intelligence to kind of help that. So that is being used to help it. And I think that that's meaningful. And then the other thing we've done at the state level that I think was overdue was the DOGE-ing of the universities, the state universities. So that's all ongoing, that is happening, and we're happy to do that. But I would also say that I went over the fiscal record in Florida. It's strong. It's really, really strong. I always want to do better. I'm not saying there aren't things. Bureaucracies are by nature inefficient, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. So you're always having to police that. But yes, we did the executive order. All our folks do. Now, all of our agencies have DOGE liaisons. We have Eric Soskin here, who's the head of our DOGE for the state. And that's been our primary focus through most of this calendar year up until more recently when we've been engaging local governments and then now have this new authority to do it. Yep. Now, look, I mean, the mayor, they can say what they want. It's fine. I mean, like, the reality is like, don't tell me that your city's run well. Show me, and you will have an opportunity to show how the city is run, and taxpayers will be able to get transparency in that. And so I don't think shouldn't be any problem with that. I mean, if you're proud of the way things are being run, then that'll be made very apparent to folks. And look, there's some areas that I'm convinced are problem areas, and maybe it turns out that they doge, and maybe they're doing better than what some people are led on to believe. But I do think you're going to see, when you have that type of increase over a short period of time without a commensurate population increase, I mean, I do think you're going to end up flagging things that I think taxpayers are going to want to see. Well, we're going to roll out, so over these 2 weeks, we're going to roll out more in other parts of the state. I think part of the reason we did this, I think the one we had most persistent inquiries about Broward. And obviously, I've been involved in Broward County affairs, not really, I mean, kind of against my will. It's like I'm forced to do, like supervisor of elections, the sheriff, we had to do a lot of stuff down there. I've removed school board members, all with just cause. I'd rather not have to do that. I'd rather them just do their jobs. But so we've been involved in there, and so we understood that there's issues. And then this was another city, Gainesville, where a lot of people were concerned. Obviously, with the recent tax, we thought we needed to do it, and was on the way back from Broward back to Tallahassee. I don't know if we're going to end up getting out of here with the weather, but we'll see what happens. But you expect to see more. I mean, you're going to see more counties in other parts of the state. You're going to see more municipalities, and it will span, geography. I mean, I know that we've got stuff in Northeast Florida on tap. I know we've got some stuff in the Tampa Bay area, and I know we've got more in Southeast Florida as well. So buckle up. You're going to be able to see that unfold. And the thing is like, I mean, look, people have to make their decisions about how they run these things. I mean, I can tell you when I see things where, you've got, $250,000, $300,000 for like a city or a county employee, like, look, maybe that's justifiable. I can tell you the CFO Florida isn't making anywhere close that much. There's folks, throughout the state government who have major responsibilities who are not anywhere near that. And so, maybe it's justified, but I think a lot of people will probably look and say, okay, wait a minute, what's been the increase in some of that? What would it mean for taxpayers if we held the line there and not done that as much? And these are all very important questions. I think the thing that we want to get, though, is just to show that this idea that you should forever have to just pay increasing taxes because your home's going up, even though it's not a realized gain, that is not required to be able to fund the things we need to fund locally, like the first responders and the schools. You definitely can do it. Especially, I mean, look, for Florida residents in particular, look, investors, snowbirds, commercial, that's a little bit different. I mean, philosophically, I would say, everything, but certainly for you as a Florida resident with your primary homesteaded residence, at what point do you own it, right? And don't tell me it can't be done, because it can be done. So we're working through all these things, but it's interesting when you crunch the numbers and look at, what revenue is getting from where across the state of Florida, that, if you look at property tax revenue, the majority of residential property tax revenue is from non-homestead property, which is weird because you'd think, the vast majority of homes are probably homesteaded in Florida. And I think it's because some of these are wealthier people, second homes. The tax value obviously goes up higher because they don't have the homestead protection. But that's the majority of the revenue there. And that's not even counting commercial. So if you talk about your primary residence, that's a distinct minority of the amount of revenue that comes into these city and county governments for property tax. A lot of people don't know that. They act like, oh, if you help a Florida homeowner, somehow there's not going to be. Actually, there's still going to be the vast majority of revenue. So we're looking through all this stuff. We're working with folks in the legislature, particularly in the Senate, about formulating what could go on the ballot and give people an opportunity to be able to vote themselves some really meaningful protection for their personal residence. And I'll tell you, if you did that, in addition to having no income tax, I mean, you're talking about the best place to live, work, raise a family, and retire, bar none at that point. All right. Well, best of luck. These guys are gonna get cracking on this, so you guys should be getting some information, hopefully, relatively soon. It doesn't happen overnight, but we understand that the time is of the essence. We've got the legislature coming in next year. They're gonna have to put the property tax on the ballot, so we want to get all this done. And I know I'll be back in town for one. I definitely think I want to go to the Texas game. We would always watch Archman, but we'll see. Maybe we'll come back before then. So God bless everyone. Thank you.